Hello there, fellow MCs. I am Scythe, and today we're getting back into Everlasting Summer. We are still stuck in this epilogue from the Miku Path, where we are not Semyon and we are not Miku. We are me and Masha, and we are stuck. We used to be students at a film college, but now we are stuck in our film. Not only that, but we are being murdered by someone. Everyone has disappeared, and the only one left is me, Masha, Alyssa, Lena, and Electronic. We are the only ones left in this entire camp. So yeah, let's see exactly what's going on here, because I don't remember any of this. So, let's go. I was forcibly awakened by someone doing their best to shake me. Physically shake me, that is. Rado was leaning over me and nudging my shoulder. What? It's your turn now. How long have I slept? About an hour. Only an hour? Stay on your watch. I'm already dozing off. Yeah, an infinite power source wouldn't hurt for our router. Although it wouldn't hurt me for me too. Oh, fine. I rose with a considerable effort, climbed over Lena and Masha, who slept with their arms around each other, and jumped down to the floor. The room seemed slightly brighter. The morning's coming. Yeah. Rowdy tried to get to my place, but I grabbed him by the collar, threw him down on the floor, and gave him a blanket and a pillow. So you can. And you cannot. Come to think about it, why can't he? Anyway, it's not that important now. I took the chair, dragged it to the door, sat down and started to wait. Anticipation seemed to be the best word to describe what I was feeling. Any moment now the door will burst open and a maniac will break into the room. The last residents of this camp will disappear. Or I will disappear. In any case, something will happen. I deeply felt that. Ryder was snoring his head off, the girls were sleeping securely, and I was starting to doze off too. I clenched the pipe harder. The feeling of cold metal against my bare skin somehow brought me back to my senses. I must not sleep. I'm their only hope now. And my own too. But it's so hard to resist. Just a couple of minutes. My eyes seemed to have a life of their own, opening and closing spontaneously as my mind wandered. Yeah, kinda recognize that one. A rustling came from behind the door. No, I must have imagined that. Just those damn grasshoppers. What are they still up to? Maybe it's the grasshoppers to blame. They fell upon the camp like a swarm of locusts and devoured everybody. A vision of me being devoured by grasshoppers unfolded in my mind. A disgusting storm was brewing in my head. Their long legs, their wings, a huge head, and the eyes filled with darkness. Eyes reflecting the abyss. Just look at the grasshopper in the eye, and you'll never be the same again. And I fell asleep. That's how it happens. I'm running away and they are after me. There are thousands of them. Millions. I'm desperately jumping over the pits and gullies, climbing hills and rocks. They don't care. They got wings. Yeah, those filthy wings that make that nasty rattle. Probably they wouldn't need their teeth anyway. They just have to flap these horrible wings faster and faster, summoning the sonic wave of the apocalypse. No, I can't just block out this hellish noise anymore. I'm falling, desperately trying to cover my ears with my hands. Please, stop it, somebody. I was woken by a sharp pain in the back of my head. Opening my eyes, I realized that I was lying sprawled on the floor. It looks that I fell asleep and slipped off my chair. It was 9 o'clock. God damn it, it looks like I was sleeping for 5 hours straight. Anything could have happened. Horrified, I patted myself down, and everything seemed to be in its place. Ah, that was close. And I heard a door creak or something. I shook our squad awake. My turn already? You sleep too much, while I've been sitting here all night long. Sure, that was a lie, but telling that I spent the night running for my life from the grasshoppers definitely wasn't an option. I'm sorry. Router hung his head. Don't worry about it. I'm hungry as hell. Masha stretched out and gave me a cute smile. And why are all you here? Don't you remember anything? Nope, what's the matter? Oh no, you became Miku? Everyone's gone, said Alyssa gloomily. Say what? Everyone's gone, vanished into thin air. Masha glanced out a window and said nothing. Seems like she remembered now. Well, getting something to eat is indeed a fine idea. Nobody was going to object. It's not like I was in the mood to eat, same as everyone else, but ultimately everyone knew that we had to keep ourselves running. Soon enough we were sitting in the canteen, quietly digging into whatever we could find. Want me to cook something? Inquired Masha quietly. Let's wait for lunch. For now it's fine. She gave me a disappointed look. Okay, so what are we gonna do? We have to get out of here. But the police. We have to get out of here, I repeated stubbornly. But how? Bus? It's highly unlikely that one will come. It doesn't run too often. At least there should be a timetable somewhere around here. I try to remember if I've ever seen the bus map on its timetable somewhere. Probably not. Then we'll go on foot. Anything's better than staying here. But it's a long way to... Well, we might hitch a lift. Here? In the middle of nowhere? I doubt that. Oh, stop it with the drama. Although, thinking about it, it's exactly the right time for drama. I'm not being dramatic, but that's it. End of story. What are we gonna say when we reach the city? We'll tell them the truth. We came to shoot a movie and then... What movie? Okay, stop fooling around, will you? I buried my face in my hands, feeling run down. Even if it was kind of a funny yesterday, although it really wasn't, you can stop it now. I don't get you. Oh, you're still going to keep on pretending that you came here not to shoot a movie, but to roleplay as a pioneer? I don't understand a thing. Alyssa swept her surprised gaze across everyone. But we are pioneers. What pioneers, for God's sake? Masha, who had kept silent so far, butted in. It's the 21st century out here. Yeah, right, pioneers. 21st. Looks like we're indeed in a deep mess. So you're all gonna say that you're, well, we are normal pioneers, who just came here on a vacation for a week or so. A heavy silence followed. Well, yes. I cast a look at Masha. It looks like she doesn't know how to react either. I signaled to her, pointing at the door. Excuse us for a second. Having gone outside, I asked, what do you think? Well, she adopted the pose of the ancient Greek thinker. It looks like they genuinely believe that, and some folks named Semyon and Miku were in our shoes until yesterday. Some. Well, I guess you're more familiar with them than I am. Oh, come on, I interrupted her. Could you come up with a more feasible theory? I still have absolutely no theories at all. I no longer know what to think. Me neither. But anyway, all hell is breaking loose here even without taking pioneers into account. Murders, dozens of people disappearing without a trace. That ought to be our top priority now. I looked closely at Masha. I wonder how can she keep such a cool head under these circumstances. Sure, I'm also trying to keep calm, but that means what? Let's leave this issue for later. But at least a wild guess? I guess it's somehow connected to the disappearances. It's safe to assume that one or even two or three humans couldn't deal with so many people at once. Agreed. It might be that this phenomenon somehow affected them. Might be. Anyway, it's easier to believe in that than, for example, that we're in a parallel reality or something. You know, by now I'm willing to believe in anything. And let's stick to this theory for now. Okay. Let's go. You go ahead, I'll be back in a minute. It's dangerous to be alone. Seriously, what's so dangerous? Broad daylight and everyone's around here. Okay. She gave me a faint smile and headed back to the canteen. But still, her behavior is also quite odd. It looks like the last few days changed everything and everyone. Is her behavior odd? Including Masha. Yesterday, shock, fear and trembling. Today, cold and sensible reasoning. Okay. Damn, she's even more self-assured than me. Could it just be good sleep? No, there's something wrong with her too. Sure, she doesn't think that she's a pioneer like everyone else, but still. If something has happened to them, then maybe it also happened to me. No, it can't be. Everything seems to be fine. I've double-checked my body and found no abnormalities. Okay, I have to keep calm and control myself. I got up and was about to return to the canteen when suddenly I heard a tiny voice from behind my back. As if somebody was calling for me. Oh no. I got down from the porch and took a few steps towards the voice. Somebody was peering at me from behind the tree and the sound had just died off. This is bad. Yeah, that's bad. It was Uliana. No, not Uliana, but something that looked like her. I froze in my tracks. Half of her face was torn and hanging down in shreds. Her grinning jaw trembling nervously as if in a laughter. A bloodshot eye, hanging half out of its socket, suddenly swiveled its pupil to look at me. I stopped breathing. It felt like I was gonna die right now due to the shock. Semyon. That thing that seemed to be Uliana was calling for me. My legs began to give out. I tried hard not to collapse, tried to scream, tried to run away. But my consciousness had already left a body that now was just a ragdoll. Moving by the will of an invisible puppet master. One more second and... Hey! I instinctively turned towards the words, caught sight of Masha standing on the porch and then instantly looked back to Liana. But she was gone. Masha seemed to notice the deathly pallor on my face and jumped over to me in the blink of an eye. What happened? I just saw Liana, there. I pointed my finger towards the tree. Sure, the sight of the butchered Slavia was indeed gruesome. But at least she was dead and not walking around in broad daylight with her face torn apart, and she wasn't calling me by name, even if it wasn't my own. The last ounce of my strength deserted me and I collapsed to my knees. What? Where? Masha was shaking me by the shoulders. It wasn't her, that was... I don't know. Get a hold of yourself. I felt a round arm slap hit me in the face and gave Masha a questioning look. My cheek burned, but I slowly started to regain my composure. Uliana was there, with her face. Basically it was a zombie. Yeah, zombie Uliana. That's the most rational explanation I can give. Masha looked at me dumbfounded. Anything can happen here. If you'd seen her yourself. Thank God I didn't. Come on, I'll get you some water. I described my encounter with that creature in detail to everyone. I can tell you one thing. Science can't explain whatever's going on here at the moment. Science? It's an outraged devilry happening here. The hand of Satan. I wish we had a church nearby to light a candle. Lena said nothing, resorted into quiet sobbing. I'd almost completely recovered and now I was able to think straight. Now it's perfectly clear that we have to get out of here. Well, I'm not a real scientist, let alone a paranormalist, but if I recall it correctly, all these demons and spirits are bound to a certain place. Therefore, if we get away from this place... Now that's an excellent solution. Masha grinned skeptically. I agree, I exclaimed, ignoring her. Yeah. Linnaeus gave a barely noticeable nod. So, it's all settled. I slammed my fist on the table and surged to my feet. Hold on, it's not like we all agreed on that. Why would we hesitate? I seriously wouldn't want a second encounter with a thing like that. Where will we go? Do you even realize how long it will take to reach the city on foot? Damn it, do you really think that nobody ever rides that road? A car, a bus, whatever. We'll get something eventually. Wouldn't be so sure. So you think that it's better to stay here? Well, I didn't say that. It's scary here, especially at night, Lena whispered quietly. That still doesn't mean that we have to go anywhere, said Masha out loud. I gave her a narrow look. No, something has surely changed in her. Perhaps I should have a gentle talk with her about it. Or perhaps I shouldn't. Maybe she's also... Okay, let's take a vote. I said it in quite a confident tone, yet I still had my doubts. What if Masha's right? Perhaps we shouldn't be running around aimlessly. On the one hand, I have no idea what awaits us beyond the gates of this camp. On the other hand, it's really all hell breaking loose here. Okay, she shrugged. And still I won't stand for another minute here. Leaving. Staying. Let's try it. Maybe we'll indeed get lucky and catch a ride. Leaving. Everyone turned their eyes towards Lena. I don't want to stay here. It seemed like my decision wasn't going to affect the outcome anyway. So let's get going. Well, I sprang to my feet. Everyone else remained seated with their heads down. Well, since we decided, Masha got up slowly and looked at me. What about our stuff? Asked Alyssa awkwardly. Do you really think that we should care now? Mumbled Browder gloomily. Do you really think we should care now? Mumbled Browder gloomily. Well, you're probably right. Well, in my case, my stuff has already vanished somewhere. In a few minutes, we were standing at the bus stop. The city is that way. Masha gestured at the horizon. It was there the day before yesterday. I grinned. Yeah, that way, Browder confirmed. We paused in silence for a few moments and then slowly headed off towards our destination. Okay, so we're gonna walk to the city. What's going to happen here? The summer sun was unbearably scorching, making the asphalt melt. Everything a few hundred feet away, the road, the trees, the grass, the sky, was melting in a bright heat haze that looked more like a burning fog. I was streaming with sweat and I was starting to think that I was getting a sunstroke. Sure, it would have been a great idea to bring more water with us, but back when we were setting, the only thing we could think of was getting our asses as far as possible from that damn camp. Eventually I felt like I was about to lose consciousness. Only the wretched trills of the grasshoppers kept me in touch with reality. Of course, this hellish noon is indeed their favorite part of the day. They couldn't care less about the scorching heat, zero humidity, or the lack of any kind of air movement. On the contrary, they felt great. It was a perfect backdrop for the final act of their last apocalyptic symphony. We probably should have stayed in the camp after all. That's strange that he is questioning this. Or at least we should have started this hike later, closer to the evening. Although wandering the unknown country road at night is hardly a good idea either. The sound of a stifled cry came from behind me. 100 feet away, Alyssa was barely holding up Lena, keeping her from collapsing to the ground. I dashed up to them. What's the matter? She's fainted. I helped to carry Lena to the roadside. There was at least some shade from a small grove. And that concludes our hike, said Masha in a gloomy mood, sinking down to the grass. I warned you. Fine, but what does it change now? We've been traveling for at least a couple of hours, so thinking heading back to the camp was pointless. Well, at least until the evening, when the heat will decrease a bit. And we still haven't seen a single car. I turned around and looked at Router. He pulled off his shirt and began to wring the sweat out of it. Alyssa was trying to revive Lena. If that's sunstroke... Stop! She shouted at me. If that's indeed sunstroke, we've gotten ourselves in deep trouble. She won't make it anywhere. I walked towards the road, shielded my eyes from the sun with my hand, and stared into the distance. Nothing but the same asphalt thread leading beyond the horizon, with no signs of civilization, or any signs of human presence at all. It was like we were the only people left, not only in the camp but in the whole world. Though if you think about what has happened before, it's really not a big surprise. I went back to the others and sat down on the log. I guess we have to scout ahead. I looked at Router. To check what's ahead, maybe we could find something, and you just stay here for a while. But she can't go anywhere right now anyway. Lena was lying with her eyes closed and gasping for air. Okay, go ahead, said Masha calmly. It just occurred to me that I'd planned to have a talk with her, but it's definitely not the time for that now. Let's go? Rowdy shrugged his shoulders and followed me. We kept walking for about 15 minutes. The girls were left far behind. What do you think? Any chance of us meeting somebody? He asked quietly. I don't know. I replied in an annoyed tone. I really wanted to refrain from talking now. The endless field stretched to the horizon, sparsely sprinkled with patches of trees and hills. The landscape looked so typical and tranquil that, in fact, it caused anxiety. If we found ourselves on the plains of hell, at least we would expect to be attacked from just anywhere, so we could embrace ourselves and prepare for the worst. Now we felt just like droplets of paint on the canvas of a nameless painter who paints in the summer in central Russia. Oh, interesting. Because I believe it said that in the beginning of the entire game too, that this looks like a Renaissance painting or something like that. Or wherever we are now. All this only made our fear stronger. Look! Yelled Router, and narrowed my eyes and saw that the road took a turn. So, what's so special? There must be something there. What makes you think that? Well, since there's a turn, we've been walking straight forward all the time, and now... Okay, let's go take a look. Oh, that sucks ass. In a few minutes we finally came to the gates of the Sovyonok Pioneer Camp. I collapsed down to the curb and buried my face in my hands. I didn't feel scared. In fact, I didn't feel any emotions at all. Just the fatigue and the void inside of me. But how? Mumbled Router. No idea. Besides, what's the difference anyway? It's not like this is any stranger than anything else that's happened to me in the last few days. I looked up at him, feeling exhausted. Router's lips were trembling. An expression of deathly horror was plastered on his face. Let's go back and fetch the girls. I didn't wait for him and just shuffled off back to where we left them. Found anything? Asked Masha, chewing on some strawberries of uncertain origin. Yeah, okay, now I'm starting to feel it too. That she's just accepting more and more that she's Miku, basically. She's turning more and more into Miku. We did. A camp. What camp? She looked surprised. Our camp. What? Masha looked so silly now, so I couldn't help flashing an ironic smile. But you were going forward, not backward. Forward, and Sovyonok is there. Hey, stop joking, she exclaimed. I'm dead serious. But, said Alyssa quietly. She was sitting down on the grass and cradling the head of Lena, who was still sleeping. Yeah, just like that. I said tiredly and dropped down to the ground. Okay, it means we're heading there. I looked at Masha keenly and suddenly realized that I can't wait anymore. Hey, what's happening with you? What do you mean? Her look screamed that now isn't the time for a breezy chatter. You were scared to death yesterday, yet today you have this happens to me all the time attitude. But what's the point in panicking? She cracked a barely visible smile. If I didn't know you... I went quiet, bit my lip and turned away. But really, do I know her that well? You used to date? So I hope so. Sure, we spent so many years together. Yeah, which means you know her. But if you get down to it, I always thought more about myself. Or rather, I always believed that she was completely satisfied. And she was always the same to me. The same thing at just about anything. Even when we were breaking up. As if she wasn't a real person. Just my favorite article of clothing. That's a hell of a weird thing to think of a person. Thinking about it, I have no idea what's going on in her soul. I just never cared about it. Thus, her behaving like this under the circumstances doesn't seem more bizarre than anything else that's happening to us. And if you think about that talk at the beach the two evenings ago, she probably really is stronger than me. Hey, are you listening to me at all? Oh, sorry. I got carried away. So much has happened. She looked at me sternly. Let's get going to the camp, or wherever you were, if that's the same old camp. Alright. In fact, it's not like we had any other choice. A few more hours in this scorching heat would only yield more casualties. But we have to carry her along. Yes. Just a sec, let me figure it out. I found 2 fairly long and sturdy sticks in the nearby grove. Coming back, I ordered Rowdy to take his shirt off. He tried to object, but soon enough he realized that there was no use in arguing. I took off my shirt as well, and we made a sort of a stretcher, attaching the fabric to the poles. Will it hold? Masha gave our device a questioning look, but ultimately gave it a few strong pulls, ensuring its strength, and smiled. It will, at least until we reach the camp. It was hard to go in this heat, but it was even harder to carry the injured. That is Lena. Several times I almost fainted and barely got myself halfway to the ground. Rowdy felt even worse. Both Masha and Alyssa were swapping places with him every now and then. Still, my pride won't allow me to ask them to carry Lena even for a minute. Sure, it's silly to act like this under these circumstances, but I couldn't help myself. This is yet another flaw in my personality. And the music died again, along with coldness, inattentiveness to the others, even my loved ones, and other less than noble traits. Finally, we somehow made it back to the camp gates, and I collapsed to the grass in the shadow of the unknown pioneer statue, completely worn out. It actually is our camp. Masha lingered on the words. And indeed, it looks the same. We have to carry her to a cabin, Alyssa mentioned quietly. Yeah. I got out with a considerable effort and prepared her for the last run. The obvious choice was Olga Dmitrievna's cabin. Most likely because we managed to come through the last night here without major problems. At least we are still alive. Me and Rowdy were sprawled exhausted on the bed, and the girls were undressing Elena on the other. Don't look, said Masha sternly. It's not like there's anything worth looking at. I snorted and turned away, giving Rowdy a harsh poke in the ribs, making him follow my lead. We're gonna get some water, and probably rummage through the canteen too. It's dangerous to go alone. Wanna come along? She grinned. No thanks. At least take the pipe with you, I said uncertainly. Do you really think it will help? And she's laughing. That's very disconcerting. I sighed heavily and closed my eyes. Well, be careful then. The door closed after a second. You asleep? Rauder's whisper reached me. As if one could sleep here. All at once I heard Lena moan from the other bed. I sat on my elbows and looked at her. Lena was tossing and turning under the blankets. Suddenly she opened her eyes and abruptly turned to face me. A devil's grin was frozen on her face. No. The same one I saw yesterday evening. Hot enough for ya, huh? She burst into laughter. I felt a shiver run down my spine. My ability to speak vanished. You... What? Asked Rauder through his sleep. I turned to him sharply. Look! I waved my hands, pointing at Lena's bed. What? He got up and looked where I was pointing first, then back at me. I turned and I saw Lena sleeping peacefully. Oh, come on! Didn't you hear it? Didn't you hear it? What? Lena was awake and said, oh, it seems like yours got sunstroke too. He turned towards the wall. But I'm absolutely sure that I heard and saw it. Well, it could be true that he had got to me at last. But it all seems to be exactly like that time. And it wasn't Lena. At the very least, it was not the Lena I knew. As if she's possessed by the devil. I lay down and pulled a blanket over my head. I really wanted to sleep, but the realization that I might never wake up again if I fall asleep now was keeping me up and running. I'm not sure how long I spent lying like that, trembling at every rustle, but eventually the door burst open and steps resounded in the room. I barely peered out from under the blanket and caught a glimpse of Alyssa and Masha entering with a bucket of water and some bags. I see you went a bit cuckoo here. Yeah, sorta. I replied with a trembling voice, trying to flash a smile. Everything okay? Seems like it. I glanced at Lena yet again, but she was still sleeping quietly. Maybe it was indeed just my imagination. Sure, given a condition of such extreme emotional stress and physical fatigue, I might be seeing things. I got up with considerable effort, took a cup from the table and scooped up some water. So, what are we doing next? We'll have to stay here for now. But Olga Dmitrievna has called the police, muttered Alyssa. Yeah, but everyone disappeared after that. In any case, until Lena comes to her senses. Although if I ever happen to see her like that again, I would frankly rather that she doesn't wake up. Alyssa lay down on Lena's bed and Masha sat down next to me. Get some sleep. She gently stroked the top of my head. Can you really sleep with all this happening? Well, keep guard. You look really tired. I guess she was right. Okay, but just a nap. Wake me up before evening. She didn't say a word, just smiled instead. Promise. I promise, replied Masha quietly. I closed my eyes and instantly tumbled into a dream. This is bad. Here they come again. The grasshoppers. This time it's their king, a huge swamp green monstrosity with really long curved legs, wings that would match the wingspan of a larger airliner, and enormous pitch black eyes. He was hanging over me, grinning and spluttering something really loud. I still didn't understand anything of their language, but judging by the tone, it wasn't anything nice that you would hear on the morning news. I wanted to get away, but he clutched me tightly with his wretched claw. Ah, someone died. I could hear my bones cracking, feel my ribs breaking, piercing my internal organs with their sharp splinters. I felt hundreds of hammers smashing inside my skull. My vision faded, and the next moment, fountains of blood and flesh were spraying all over the place. No one is dead, I jumped out in a cold sweat. My own scream still reverberated in the room. It took me several seconds to clear my dimness from my eyes. I looked around frantically and realized that it was evening already, and it was completely dark outside. Good grief, we didn't turn off the light yesterday. Masha was lying asleep next to me, while Ryder was curled up on the floor. Lena was lying on the other bed, tightly wrapped in the blankets. Yet Alyssa was nowhere to be seen. Hey! I woke Masha up with a few rough prods. What? She slowly came to her senses. Didn't I ask you? Sorry, I fell asleep. She had such a guilty expression on her face that I felt sick. I should have relied on her. At least I could have set up an alarm. I woke Router up. Where's Alyssa? I don't know, said Masha worriedly. Well, who does know? We were all asleep. Well, she was sleeping here and then... Her eyes started around guiltily. And then you fell asleep. She hung her head and let out a heavy sigh. Oh, perfect. Just perfect. I pounded my fist on the table, making Masha jump. Okay, you sit here and we'll go out and find her. Alone? Her face suddenly took on an expression of fright. Alone? Wasn't it you who told me that it's not worth panicking? Yeah, but it's not... Oh, fine, I'll go alone. But... Or do you really want to sit here with only Lena? Masha kept silent. It's dangerous to go alone. I noticed that Router seemed to have fully awakened. And it's not dangerous for her to sit there all alone? I felt that there was no point in arguing, so I got up, grabbed my trusty pipe and headed to the door. In any case, given that people have been disappearing into thin air, one can feel safe anywhere or in any company. Of course, it still could turn out that Alyssa just went somewhere. To the toilet, for example. Although, given how frightened she looked, I guess she would have woken up Masha or just have held it till morning. Damn. Anything but going all alone and through the camp. I braced myself, pulled the handle and went outside. I swept back across the landscape and then... I saw Alyssa. Hanging high above the ground from the tree right in front of the cabin. A sharp pain pierced my temple and I collapsed to the ground. The horror was so overwhelming that I literally felt my whole body being bound in steel chains. Blinded with fear, I barely managed to crawl back into the cabin and close the door. What happened? Masha rushed over to me. Don't look! I grasped her arm. Don't go outside! What's the matter? She reached out for the door handle. I attempted to stop her, but I was so weak that I could only let out a groan of despair. Opening the door, Masha screamed and froze in her tracks. Gathering my last ounces of strength, I got up and kicked the door shut. The next moment, Masha fainted and fell back into my arms. I carried her to the bed and put her down next to the shaking Router. His face told me that he's definitely not interested in knowing what happened here. All these screams woke Lena up. She rose slightly in her bed and gave us a glance. What's happening? She asked in a whisper. I didn't know how I should reply. I felt a scream rising up in my throat, but I managed to muffle it to a hollow sigh. Lena was horrified, but she still didn't realize what exactly had happened here. Don't go outside, I moaned. Unlike Masha, she wasn't one to argue. An oppressive silence ensued. Even the grasshoppers seemed to quiet down in order to add suspense to the situation. Masha was still lying on my lap, Ryder was quivering in the corner of the bed, and Lena was sitting in front of me with an expression of doom and despair on her face. I stared at the door with an unblinking gaze, waiting for the moment it would burst open and... My fear couldn't manifest in any concrete form. A homicidal maniac, a monster, an alien. It was the horror of the unknowable, darkness and emptiness. I wasn't afraid that I would be torn to pieces just like Slavia, or that I would become a zombie like Uliana. I was afraid to disappear, vanish without a trace from this world. Masha let out a quiet moan. I just had such a nightmare. It wasn't a dream. She opened her eyes wide and looked at me with horror. There! Don't look. I shouted and hastily embraced her. Lena started crying loudly, ran up and pressed herself against me, trembling all over. Long minutes dragged on in an agonizing silence. So, what are we going to do now? Asked Masha through her tears. She didn't seem so self-confident now, although we were all in the same situation. Time passed, yet nothing happened. We had to make a decision. I couldn't say that I came back to my senses after what I saw, but I still felt my mind clearing up a bit. I knew one thing for certain. We can't stay here. But you already tried to escape, though. So how will you deal with that? And it wasn't because it was more dangerous here than anywhere else. It's just because I can't endure staying near the corpse of Alyssa. I bet it's even more of a gut-wrenching experience for the girls. We have to go, I said quietly. I felt Masha and Lena hugging me even tighter. We have to. Browder stopped shaking and left the bed. How are you feeling? I asked Lena. She said nothing. Can you walk? Probably. I gently escaped their embraces and got up. We have to run. At night it will be easier to go. But Masha tried to make a humble objection. Yeah, I know that we decided to stay, but now we have to get out of here. I turned to Router. You do realize that they shouldn't see all that. He gave a barely visible nod. Although Router didn't know what happened to Alyssa, it was obvious that his vivid imagination had conjured up so many gruesome theories during this time that he was probably even more depressed than me. Okay, we're gonna hold hands and go. I'll go first and lead the way. Masha goes next, then Lena, then you. I looked at the girls. They were sitting with their heads hanging down, sobbing quietly. Ready? Nobody replied. This was obvious and a useless question. One can never be ready for such a situation. I took Masha's hand, turned around and gave Lena and Router a serious look. Okay, now shut your eyes and don't open them no matter what. You got that? Yeah. Lena nodded. I steeled myself, burst open the door and went out, holding Masha's hand. Watch out for the steps. When we made our way outside, I darted a final glance at Alyssa. What I saw now didn't send me sprawling onto the ground. Although my heart was racing frantically, I was feeling sick and dizzy and my stomach turned. She was hanging about 5 meters above the ground. Several neckerchiefs tied together in a string were tied around the throat. Bulging eyes, protruding tongue, putrefaction already at work on the body. It looked like she didn't die a couple of hours ago, but at least a couple of days. An expression of agony and inhuman suffering was permanently frozen on her face. It was clear that she couldn't have done such a thing to herself. Okay, that sucks. My God, who came up with all this? Maybe we are all in hell. I hastened my steps away from the diabolical scene, dragging the others along. I ordered them to open their eyes only when we reached the square. She's still there? Asked Masha, not letting go of my hand. I just nodded. Who? Alyssa? Lena cried out loud and burst into tears. Masha embraced her and tried to comfort her. What happened to her? muttered Router with a faltering tongue. I bet you don't want to know that. For a while I just stood there and looked at the moon. Lena was sobbing, Radu was pacing in circles around us, and Masha sat down at the bench and buried her face in her hands. Okay, it's time, I said quietly, yet nobody moved. We can't stay here. I walked to Masha, leaned over and took her hand. She raised her eyes filled with tears at me and nodded. We slowly proceeded to the bus stop. Night has fallen on the camp. Along the way I noticed that the grasshoppers were almost quiet. Keeping silent for some time, now they resumed their nasty song, but this time it was much quieter and, I might say, a little bit more respectful. Their daytime progressive noise changed to a nocturne for violin and orchestra. Is there any chance they're conscious about what's going on here? Of course, we assume that there are grasshoppers in hell too. We came to the bus stop and stopped, hesitating. So, where are we going? And that will be the end of today's episode. I did not expect Alyssa to be murdered like that. It looked like a suicide, but no. According to not Semyon, it was not a suicide but a murder. Someone hanged her. And maybe it happened several days ago if his coronary skills are up to snuff, that is. And yeah. Thank you guys for watching. And thank you Joseph for donating directly to my Ko-fi page. If you guys want to help me out, you can do so by clicking the link down in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Goodbye everyone.